Hey everyone, V here. Obviously, I mean, who else would be on this podcast but me? But today I will be doing a What I Read episode, and this is for January 2019. So, January was a fairly good month reading wise. I managed to read 8 books, but I DNF'd, which is term it's called did not finish, and just books that I just shelved because I just didn't care about it. So I read 8 books and I DNF'd 5 books. So, which is honestly, I've been doing that a lot more lately. I just do not have the time or the energy, motivation, what have you, to be struggling through books when I have so many other ones that I want to read. So even if it turned out to be really good or it would have interested me somewhere down the line, I feel like if a book doesn't get me within the first 100 pages, 20% or so, then I'm over it. So on to the next one. But anyways, I think that January was fairly good. It started off amazing. The first 2, possibly 3 books that I read that month was spectacular. Like, honestly, the first 2 books I gave 5 stars, and then the third one I gave 4. It kind of went a little bit downhill from there. There is a 2-star book, but for the most part, it was a good month. All right, so let's just jump right in, right? So let me talk about the books that I DNF'd first because they're fairly straightforward. I won't go into depth with them too much, obviously, because I didn't read them. I'll just tell you like why I stopped reading them. And then we'll talk about the books that I did read. So the first book that I DNF'd was City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. And this is basically a book about a girl who can see ghosts. Her parents are like, they're doing this show basically in Scotland where they're like ghost hunters. For, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And so they go to Scotland, and then there the main girl Cassidy, she meets other people who can see ghosts, and they're part of like this team of people that hunt ghosts and either try to capture them or like get rid of them, that sort of thing. And it sounded really interesting. And honestly, it was. It was really good up until the part that she went to Scotland, because after that, I just totally lost interest. I think I wanted the focus to be more on her and her experiences with the ghosts and trying to, I don't know, help them either cross over or maybe if there are like some scary ghosts along the way, kind of seeing how she would handle all that. And I guess I was hoping for a little bit more of a spooky factor, but honestly, for some reason, once she went to Scotland and I met that cast, or not even the whole cast, honestly, but just a couple of the characters in that ghost hunting team, they were just so boring to me. And I honestly could not even tell you what was going on after that. I lost interest right then and there. And what was it? Like, not even, I don't think even 20% into it. I was just like done. I was like, whatever. It didn't really interest me, which kind of sucks because I've honestly given Victoria Schwab quite a few chances. I've read a couple of her other books, but it just never sticks with me, which sucks because everybody always praises her and says like what an amazing author she is, but her writing is just not, it's not connecting with me. So there's that. Another book that I DNF'd was The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and that was a kind of like a suspense or mystery, whatever, kind of book where you'd get this group of teenagers who have a set of skills, like the main girl, also Cassie. I didn't even realize it. But like she can like profile people, like she pays attention to the way that they act and how, basically behaviors and stuff like that, and she can profile you that way and kind of tell what kind of person you are and certain moves that you're going to make and stuff like that. And there's other ones that can like read emotions or I don't know, I forget what exactly the gifts are, but that's pretty much the gist of it. And so the FBI basically has this team of teenagers that are skilled in certain types of profiling, and they use them to help solve crimes. And it sounded really fun, and this book does have over 4-star ratings, like a bunch of 4-star ratings on Goodreads, and I really, really wanted to get into it, but I don't know, I just didn't really connect with it. I just didn't really like the characters, and I think because it was so early on that I gave up on it, that I didn't get into any of their cases. I couldn't, which maybe if I had stuck around for the cases, I probably would have enjoyed it because I didn't get to that point. But if I didn't really like any of the characters, then it doesn't really matter how good the cases are. I just wouldn't care. That's my whole issue with books right now, is that I really need to care about the characters. Otherwise, it's not for me. Maybe if the story grabs me right from the start, then I can feel like, oh, even though I hate these characters and I don't want any of them to be together, I don't care if they live or die, I just want to read the story. But that rarely, rarely, if ever, happens. And yeah, I just couldn't get into it. Another book that I DNF'd was Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. And this is a book, another, mystery, murder mystery kind of book. I was really, I'll tell you honestly, towards the middle and latter half of January, I was on this mystery thriller kick. And that was because of one of the books that I read that I gave 4 stars with, that I'll tell you about in a minute. But I just was really on this kick and trying to find really good murder mystery or thriller books, and these ones just weren't cutting it. I mean, this was one of those books that started off so amazing. I was like, oh, there's a girl in there that gets tied up in this murder, and you're like, what's going to happen? But it was just so slow, and it was jumping back and forth from the murder that happened in the past, and then the cast of teens now the one girl that's trying to solve that murder, and then the other teens that she meets in the school. It's like a boarding school kind of thing. But oh my God, the cast of teenagers in this story was just so annoying. I hated them all. Like, they were very, uh, it just kind of was like, I guess, reality show kind of characters where you just like, I don't know. I'm not a big reality show person, so in that kind of thing, like Housewives or Jersey Shore, that kind of thing, I don't care for that. So that's what they reminded me of. They were very juvenile and very annoying. So even if I wanted to know what happened, I didn't care enough. I couldn't get over these annoying characters to really care. And then I hear that you don't even find out what happens in this book, because there's another book, and I think even a third book after that. And I'm like, I don't know. I need a mystery to be solved within that book, because if I have to wait 3 books to find out what the actual mystery is in a mystery book, then no, I can't wait that long. The next book that I DNF'd was Hate Notes by Vi Keeland and Penelope Word. I guess it's Vi Keeland because that's not her full name. I don't know. When I see VI, I just think of my name, so I call it V, but whatever. That's besides the case. So this is a adult romance book, and it's kind of basically the same as any other adult romance book. A beautiful guy has a lot of money and a girl that falls in love with him and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And I'm normally like, this is like my bread and butter, if you will. Like, I kind of read these romances just to have something to read, something to listen to, because a lot of times I listen to it on audiobooks, and it's kind of just to pass the time away. I know how it starts. I know the actual like timeline, plot line through and through, but I like it, because it's comfortable and I know what's going to happen, even if they try to be a little bit different, but it's pretty much the same. But I don't know. I just could not get into this at all. And I genuinely, normally I do like these authors and their books, but just something about this just did not stick with me. Like, I couldn't tell you what happened from the very beginning until when I stopped, if like I had a knife to my throat, because did not care. So yeah, what was it? Like I'm looking at the page right now. It's just about like this girl. She finds an unworn bridal gown at a vintage clothing shop, and in there's a message from this guy who she, through like a twist turn of events, like she ends up working for, but he's a jerk, and she's trying to figure out where is, the nice guy under that. It's that whole typical, jerk that turns out to be a nice guy, the douche with a golden heart kind of thing. So I don't know. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I hate it. I don't know, but I didn't like it here. Another one, okay, the last one that I DNF'd, that I'm kind of mad that I DNF'd it, and sometimes I want to go back and check it out, but I don't know if I have the time or energy for it. But it was Arch Enemies by Marissa Meyer, and this is actually the second book in her Renegades series. The first book was Renegades, but it's basically about like superheroes, these teenagers who have superpowers, and I'm a big fan of superheroes, and I don't know, I could not care enough about these characters. I liked the main boy, Adrian, and I liked his development, and his powers were very different, very cool, and I liked his scenes. But everything else about the story, I did not care for, especially the main girl. I don't know, not that. I was indifferent towards her. Like I didn't care about her at all. And when you don't care about the main character, the story is basically shit. So it just did not hold my attention at all. I honestly, I think I went through like half of it, and I still didn't care. And so I was like, okay, at this point, it's like not even worth it. What is the point, And it sucks because I really love Marissa Meyer, and the first book was okay. Honestly, like I liked it. I didn't love it as much as her other series, but it was enough for me to at least give this one a try. But this just did not hold my attention at all. It sucks. Anyways, on to the books I actually did love and read all the way through. Like I said, it's the January started out amazing. The first book that I read was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and hands down one of my favorite books of the year already, and possibly one of my favorite books of all time. I really hope that they make this into a movie because I would love to see this. It's just so, so good. And it's basically about this actress it was like, really, I forget what era it was. Yeah, the 1950s. So, from making her way to Los Angeles in the 1950s to her decision to leave the show business in the 80s. So, it's all like old timey. And I think of all those old time movies and style and stuff like that. And I think this would make a perfect movie if they can adapt it well enough. But I mean, it's about an actress, so, and it's very Hollywood-esque. So, I feel like they could do something good with this. But it was just so engrossing and intriguing reading about this woman's life. And it's not even more so about her husband's, but it's just about her life and her experiences in Hollywood. And, she's Cuban, and just, her being a minority in Hollywood, and all of the glitz and glamour and secrets and lies and stuff that goes into Hollywood. It's just so engrossing, and like I just could not stop. Like I listened to this, so I could not stop listening to this book. It was hands down one of my favorites. It's definitely worth reading, worth listening to, and I cannot rave about this book enough. It's so, so amazing. I gave this book 5 stars, obviously. Like I said, it's one of my favorite books, so loved it. Anyways, the next book that I read in January, which I also loved, I gave it 5 stars, is Sadie by Courtney Summers. If you take away anything from this podcast, hear me out on this, take my recommendation. You have to listen to this book, okay? Get it on audiobook and listen to it, because it's in like a podcast form, honestly, and it is so freaking amazing. I cannot say enough about this and how much I love this. This, I think, was one of the things that that made me really want to get back into podcasting and listening to podcasts, because I was really into it for a minute back in, last year, middle of last year, beginning of last year, and then I kind of fell out of it. But this kind of just sparked my love of it and my interest in it again, and I just was so enamored and so captured and riveting with. I was just so engrossed in this book, and just getting back into podcasts, because I don't know if you've ever listened to the podcast, the Serial Podcast. That's what they're basing it off of. And this book is a murder mystery. It's a young adult, and it's about this girl that uh, gets killed. And so her sister goes on a hunt to try to find the person who did it. And you get all of these testimonies. I don't know if you'd call them testimonies, but like different accounts from various people that run into her and people in her life. And it's just so, uh, it's like you're watching a show, or again, listening to a podcast and experiencing it that way. Really, really good. So it's very interesting. And probably the only thing that I have to say, the only thing that I hated about it was the ending. And if you listen to it or read it or whatever, then you'll understand. But it's just so, it's good. It's really, really good. I was surprised, honestly, because I don't remember if I've read anything from Courtney Summers. Probably not. But and I've seen this book around the book community, and I was like, I don't know if I would be interested in it, but it popped up in my audiobook queue, and I was like, okay, let me give it a try. And after that, once I started listening to it, I couldn't stop. It was just so, so good. I loved it. Okay, so the next book that I read was The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Buchanan. And this was one that I listened to as well. Honestly, most of the time I'm listening to a book because I just don't have time to sit down to read a book. But yeah, this was another thriller mystery book. And this one actually is, I think, being made into a movie. But it was really good. And another one that sparked my interest in the whole mystery thriller stuff and threw me down that rabbit hole. And I am dying to read their next book, which is An Anonymous Girl. But yeah, I really, really loved it. So this one is just about like two women and this one guy. And so like she is the ex-wife and he's getting remarried, and you kind of go back and forth with that, and just it's I don't really want to give away the twist, but there is a twist, and I'm not spoiling that because the twist is stated in the synopsis, which is one of my critiques about the book, is because you always, obviously, if you go into a mystery thriller, you expect a twist, but the synopsis makes it so blatant that there is a twist there that you kind of really go looking for it, and it's really, that's all you're focused on. So I would say that you kind of want to go into it blindly. Like, don't even read the synopsis at all. Just kind of go by what I'm saying. It's about two women, and a previous wife and a future wife, and you kind of just go from there. Like, just honestly, it's a good book regardless, and I'm excited to see how they adapt it. Which it kind of reminds me of like Gone Girl, and along that line. So if you liked that, then I think you would get a kick out of this. I will say that I pretty much knew what was going on right away, even before the whole twist happened. And it's fairly obvious, even if you don't read the synopsis and you go into it, it's fairly obvious what is happening. And I loved the way that the authors told the story. And I don't know, I just think it was really good. So definitely worth a read for sure. I did give that one 4 stars, just in case you were wondering. The next book that I read was After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this one has been on my TBR for the longest time. I saw a few of my other book blogger friends were reading it like a while ago, sometime like early last year, and I don't know. Yeah, it's been on my shelf since then, but I finally got around to reading it just because I read the Evelyn Hugo book and I wanted to read another one by Taylor Jenkins Reid, so I gave this one a try. And I also like the premise because all these books talk about falling in love and the honeymoon phase and all of that, and that's well and good, but nobody ever really talks about what happens after that. And even if they do, like if there's an epilogue about what happens after they fall in love, it's all, butterflies and rainbows and, oh, I'm still in love with my significant other and things are just fine and dandy. But that's good and all. Like we all love to see we all love the happily ever after, but sometimes I want something that's more reality based and actually gets to the nitty gritty and actually thinks and actually discusses like what happens when the initial honeymoon phase like fades away and you're dealing with reality like bills and disappointments or being super busy and all and not focusing on your relationship and all that. That's kind of like I wanted to read more about that. So that you find that a lot in this book. And so it's about this couple who they, you know, basically on the verge of divorce. And so they decide to take a year, separate for a year and kind of rediscover themselves and see if they still want to try on this relationship, which I mean, it's when that happens, you can either go into like marriage counseling and try to focus on each other more and just be around each other more, or you can separate and see how your lives are without each other, and then later on decide if you like that life better or you like the life that you have together better. So, I mean, and different, I guess, different options for different people, and nothing, no one thing works for everybody. So, I will say that it's good that she took that route, and we can kind of see how that goes. But I honestly only gave this 3 stars because my biggest gripe with that was like with the book in general was what happened at the end, because you're mostly following Lauren and her journey after the separation, and you just really think that it's going to go a certain way and then it totally veers off course, and I didn't like it. I'll be honest with you, I did not like the way that it ended. And I guess some people could argue that that's what she was going for. That's obviously what was going to happen. But to me, I was hoping for something a little bit different. And I thought that she was going to go a certain way, and she didn't. And it annoyed me. And it made the journey, all the pages that I had read beforehand, it made all that like not worthless to me, and it just didn't make sense. Like I didn't like it, so that's why I only gave it 3 stars. But it was an interesting read, and I want to read more stories with this kind of theme and this genre, and hopefully get like the ending that I want. But yeah, I think that it's worth a read, and some people do like how it ends, others or like whatever. But I don't know. I guess I'm in the minority of how it ends and that I didn't like it, but you can be the judge of that yourself. I think if you're looking for that kind of book about like what happens after the honeymoon phase, and if you're looking for a little bit something that's a little bit more realistic, then I suggest trying out this book. Although I will say that I don't know. For me personally, I feel like the ending wasn't realistic, and that's my biggest problem, is that everything up until that point was realistic. Okay, another book that I read was Repeat by Kylie Scott. And this was a romance book. I think I had gotten off of a lot of those other more serious books and I wanted something mindless. And so that's why I turned to romance. And I'm not dissing romance because I love romance books. But sometimes when you don't want to delve too deeply or think a lot, you just read a romance book because like I said, I know how the whole story is going to go, and you just want like a happily ever after kind of thing. So I read this book and I gave it 2 stars because, oh, so many things. So the premise is that the girl in the book has amnesia, and she goes back and tries to figure out how her life was before the incident. The way that she goes back and she reconnects with her ex, but they didn't end on good terms. And she was very dramatic and very like emotional back in the day before her amnesia. And so that's why she rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And when she gets back into their lives, they cannot get over it. Which honestly, that's probably the biggest thing that bugged me about this book, was how much they held her past against her. Like, I understand that when you're looking at this person, you cannot forgive or forget the things that they did to you, or the way that they treated you, or how they acted. But legit, this girl has amnesia and she's a totally different person, and you don't really see any of that stuff coming back. So why do you keep bringing it up? Why do you keep treating her this way? I would have like tried to at least treat her like a different person. Just because she happens to look like the old Clementine, that's her name, doesn't mean she actually is the old Clementine. And you would at least try to give her the benefit of the doubt, try to treat her like a different person. And then if, you know, certain old traits come up, then you'll be like, oh, okay, then you're still the same person. But I just didn't like the way that a lot of the characters treated her. I get initially, maybe the first couple times that you see her, yes, you're going to be a little bit guarded and a little bit jaded about how she was. But even after, you know, she was back in their lives for a few months, they still treated her that way, like certain people did. And I didn't like it. I didn't like how they treated her at all. I think that was my biggest gripe with it, and I just couldn't get over that fact. And I have to say that the romance, the relationship, it was like, it didn't, I was very indifferent towards it. Like, sometimes I liked them together, and other times I was like, whatever, I didn't really care. So I think that's another factor of why I didn't like this book that much. I couldn't connect to Ed so much as a character, and I feel like it would have been better to be in his head through some of the chapters to kind of see how he was feeling about everything. Because, yeah, I didn't care for him. It was like whatever. I was like, I was reading this. I was like, I felt for Clementine, and I felt for her situation, and as a person, but I didn't really care for them as a couple, and I didn't care for Ed. So that's another reason why. 2 stars for me. So there's that. And I think that was my first book from Kylie Scott. I mean, I'm open to trying one of her other books, but this one wasn't so much of a winner for me. Another book that I read was Fight or Flight by Samantha Young. And I love Samantha Young and her books. Her On Dublin Street series is one of my all-time favorites. And I was hoping for something along the lines here, and it just did not pan out that way. This is basically your typical, like, lusters to lovers kind of story, you know? Immediate attraction from the get-go, and they want to have sex and all that, and then afterwards they can't, you know, they can't get enough of each other, and they want to do a no strings attached relationship, and bam, one or the other has feelings, and they fall in love. And that's basically the gist of it, okay? But the twist is that either one or both of them is unwilling to commit. They're like, yes, I love you. I have strong feelings for you, but I don't want to admit it. My heart's been broken in the past. I have all this baggage, and so I don't believe in relationships, and this is never going to work out, even though I've never felt for anyone the way I felt for you, and blah, blah, blah. And so that's the base. Again, that's the basic gist of it. A lot of the times, yes, I can see, you know, I've had bad relationships in the past, and I'm very jaded too, and of course you're going to want to hold back, and you're going to want to be guarded and all that. But with his history, when you find out the full story, I feel like he was a bit too dramatic, and it was a bit much. Like, I've seen and I've read of a lot of characters' backstories that are a lot worse than his, and could have been way more resistant than he was, but he was a touch too much for me, given what he went through. And I'm not belittling what he went through at all, but I don't know. I feel like he was a bit much. He could have given in a lot earlier than he did. I don't know. I feel like I'm being a lot more picky and a lot more judgmental in terms of like male characters now because I just I've read the full gamut and I know what I like in male characters, and so he's not particularly what I would care for. Yeah. Okay, two more books. The last two books that I read in January, the first one was Girls of Paper and Fire. That's by Natasha Nan. And I really liked one. Both of these, well, this one I gave 4 stars. And I don't know if you're Asian, then maybe, and you're around like my age, I'm 33, and so if you're around my age, or maybe if you were into Asian dramas back in the day, then you would know they're like, TVB. If you know what TVB is, then you will know what I'm talking about. These Chinese or Asian dramas, and they're like TV shows that me and honestly a ton of other people were obsessed with back in the day. And this just reminded me of one of those like period shows where it would be like a king and he'd have like a bunch of wives or concubines, what have you, and they'd be in these old period Chinese outfits, and they'd have that really big headpiece um, with the dangling charms and stuff like that, and they'd walk around with these like high, I don't know what to call it. These, honestly, if you have seen it, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But basically, that's what it is: old school China, and these girls that are concubines to the king and stuff, and you get to see how they live and their interactions with him. But the twist here is that the king is a demon, and they don't want to be. I mean, most of the time, honestly, you're kind of just forced to be a wife or a concubine. Back in the day, the women didn't really have much choice. And so that's kind of the same premise here. But at least, even if the king was a jerk, he wasn't a demon hell bent on like killing and destroying people. So, or thinking that humans are beneath them. So that's what you get here. And the person that she falls in love with is different, but in a good way. Like I really appreciated the way that how the author took the romance. I think that the romance it's not the forefront of the book, but it does weave its way into the story and becomes a big thing later on. So I liked that. I liked the romance a lot, and I liked um, getting to know the cast of girls, and they're all pretty different. And then like seeing what they had to do as paper girls, which is what they're called. That I think it was like, yeah, 8 girls that they get every year to be the concubines for the king. Each year it's a different selection, and she's from like the poorest of the poor. And the reason why she gets chosen is because she has golden eyes, which I have my biggest gripe with the book is that they really don't delve deeply into her past and why she is the way she is. Like, why is she the one with the golden eyes? There has to be something different about her. Has to be something special about her. And they don't go too much into that, at least from what I remember, or I didn't really catch it if they did. And they focus more on like really politics and trying to change the government and all that, because the king is a bad guy. I'm very interested to see how the next book goes, and hopefully that they'll dive more into her, because my another big issue that I had with that, kind of like with her past and everything, was that we don't really get to see why she's so important. Like, I like that she is very strong-willed and she doesn't like to conform to a lot of the norms that they have for these girls or for society in general. She tries to combat that, tries to be her own person and very independent and very like feminist and that kind of thing. And so I really appreciated that. But I didn't really see what was outside of that. I didn't see what was so special about her. And you would think with this girl with the magical golden eyes, and she's supposed to be um, the one, the one basically to overturn the king and the one to change things. That I feel a bit more magic. You know, I feel like there wasn't enough magic. There was a lot of like the political stuff and a lot of normal stuff that you would find in like a contemporary book, but not enough of the fantasy aspects that I was hoping for. And I don't know, I guess I was reading too much into the title, you know, because she is a paper girl, but then this is the girls of paper and fire, and I was hoping for some kind of like magical fire element to happen, and it did not. And it was kind of a letdown for me. Yeah. I will check out the next book though to see it, but I mean, I'm not having high hopes for it. So the last book that I read was The Wicked King by Holly Black, and this is a sequel to The Cruel Prince, and it's about fae, you know, fairies. And I have to say, like, after reading this book, that I do not care about fairies anymore. Like, I was interested in the genre and the creatures for a time, but the more stories that I read in that world, I just don't care because they're very insensitive, they're very inconsiderate, and like even if you find a good one that genuinely cares about the human main character or like falls in love and all that stuff, it's just they're still not what I would consider an ideal uh lover, an ideal soulmate or whatever, because they just remind me too much of like the douche aloof male characters that I've grown to hate. So and honestly, the romance is not the big part of this series, anyways. It's kind of just there just because I feel like the author feels like there has to be a romance, so she puts that in there. But really, the actual guts of the book or the series in general is the political intrigue and you know, the main girl Jude, she's a human and she's trying to make her place in this society, and there's a lot of like back and forth because the in the first book the actual king dies, and there's, you know, he has sons, and there's a lot of like fighting for it and all that, and then different courts are trying to over just a lot of politics basically trying to come up, and then she's trying to get in on it, and she's trying to make sure that that everybody knows that she's fierce and then don't mess with her just because she's human, that she can one up them even though they're fae. And it's a lot of like back and forth like that, and you get different different sides vying for the power basically, and there's a lot of lies, a lot of deception, and I cannot stand her family at all. I legitimately hate her family. Like her sister is honestly the worst. Like I feel terrible for her. And like she tries her best to be there for her family and support them, and then her family treats her like shit. Straight up like shit. And I'm just wondering, like, my problem with this book is like, why is she doing all this? Like, it would be so much obviously if she neglected it all and went off to live in the human world and totally just be like, F you guys, I don't even care about this shit, you guys can all die, there would be no story. So I get it in that sense, but like I just don't understand like why she, because she gets like hurt so many times. Like a lot of these characters want her to die, and they like hurt her, and she just like it's enough. Like if I was her, I'd be like, this is enough. I can't deal with this BS anymore, and I need to just like get away from you guys. Screw you all. You guys can all fight for the throne. I don't give a damn. Um, but like she keeps on chugging along, and I have to. I'll give her credit for that. Like she's the girl's got determination, and she's like, I don't even care how bad you treat me, I will survive and I will be on top. So yes, if you like that, then there's that. But like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm like, what is the point? Like it's not worth it, because these guys will, these fae will always try to, they'll never respect you and they'll never appreciate you. And you're always going to have to look behind your back, behind your shoulder. Somebody's always going to be out to get you. Like, they're very deceiving and very cruel and very just, honestly, the titles are perfect. They're wicked, cruel, and just plain nasty. So why? So it's that kind of mindset that makes me like have a really like love-hate with relationship. I have a love-hate relationship with this book and this series where it's just like, it's good. Like, the writing is good. I'll admit that. Holly really keeps you interested in the story, and I really want to figure out like what happens next and how it all plays out. Yes, that is good. But the actual characters, like, I hate all of the characters. And I don't understand why she keeps doing this. Jude needs to get her ass out of there and all that. But yeah, that's why I said, like, I love it, but I hate it, so I will read the next book, the last book, and I want to see how it all ends and hope that my time invested in the series will pay off and that Jude will come out on top. I hope that will be the case, but I doubt it, or at least she'll lose a limb or an eye or something, because she ain't gonna come out of this 100. Yeah, so. Okay, so that is all of the books that I read or experienced or tried to read in January. Most of it was good, some of it was okay, and only one of it was really bad. So, yeah, not bad. For a month of reading, that is all that I have for you guys today. I'd love to know your thoughts on any of the books that I read, or my thoughts, or your opinions on what I thought about them. I'd love a discussion. Honestly, like, I feel like I love talking about books or talking about things in general, but I would also love to discuss them, have heated discussions back and forth about it, and get different people's take on it. So that's always something that I strive to get out of all this. You can definitely connect with me on Instagram, or if you want to comment on this on my Patreon page, then you're more than welcome to. Anyways, I just want to thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will check back with you next month with more books that I've read, hopefully good ones, but also on the next episode, who knows what's going to pop up next on my feed. So, yeah. Anyways, thanks again. I will catch you all next time. Bye.